She stands closer each night. I didn't notice her at first. It was a Thursday, just past midnight, and I'd been up late grading papers with the window cracked to let in the cool April air. I live on the second floor of an old brick building, nothing fancy. Below my apartment is an unused patch of lawn and a few crumbling garden stones no one's bothered to clean up since the 70s. Most nights it's dead quiet out there, just the rustle of branches, the distant hum of traffic, and maybe the occasional raccoon skulking around the bins. That night, though, I felt something. You know when you know you're being watched? That prickle that crawls up the back of your neck like a static charge? I felt that. Not subtle. Like a hook behind my eyes, tugging toward the window. I glanced out, just a reflex, honestly, and there she was. A woman. Standing completely still in the patch of darkness just beyond the reach of the street lamp. I couldn't make out her face, just the pale oval of it. Her body was wrapped in something long, maybe a dress, maybe a coat, but it didn't move in the breeze. She didn't move at all. Just stood there. Staring up. At me. I froze, blinking. Thought maybe I was imagining it. You get punchy after hours of grading, start seeing things in the shadows. But when I looked again, she was still there. Same position. Same stillness. I waited. Maybe she'd wave. Move. Say something. She didn't. Just kept staring, unmoving, as if waiting for something. Eventually, I pulled the curtain shut. I don't know why it felt so hard to do. Like I was turning my back on a bear that might charge the second I blinked. Sleep didn't come easy after that. By morning, she was gone. I told myself it was nothing, maybe someone lost, maybe a junkie coming down from a high. But that chill clung to me all day. And that night, when I got home and flipped on the kitchen light, I found the window half open. I know I closed it. I latched the window shut. I even double-checked it before bed, ran my fingers along the sill to make sure the lock clicked into place. I didn't want to admit I was spooked, but I slept with the bedroom door closed and a baseball bat leaning against the wall beside me. Around 2:13 a.m., I woke up. No sounds. No dreams. Just awake, like something pulled me out of sleep by the collar. My mouth was dry. I tried not to look toward the window, but my eyes drifted there on their own, like they already knew. She was back. Standing in the exact same place. This time, she was closer. Half a step. Maybe more. It was hard to tell, but I swear I could see more of her now. Her face, still too far for details, but the shape of it seemed wrong. Not disfigured, just blurred. Like someone tried to draw it from memory and smudged the features into uncanny vagueness. She wasn't doing anything. Just staring. Like before. But now, something was different. The air felt heavy, like the pressure before a storm. My ears buzzed faintly, like I was underwater. I reached for my phone to take a picture, but as soon as I pointed it toward the window, she moved. Not fast. Just a subtle shift. Her head tilted slightly, like she was acknowledging me. I dropped the phone. The screen cracked. I didn't pick it up. I backed out of the room without turning off the light, heart hammering in my chest. I slept on the couch with the TV on, volume barely audible, just enough to drown out the silence. In the morning, the window was open again. The latch was still in place, but the glass had been pushed up just an inch. And sitting on the sill, was a single, long, black hair. I left for work early, just to get away from the apartment. Took the long way, got coffee from a place I usually avoid, anything to kill time. All day, I kept thinking about that hair on the windowsill. It was long, too long to be mine, and thick, with a strange, oily sheen. I wrapped it in a paper towel and flushed it. That felt stupid afterward. Like I'd destroyed evidence. I told myself I'd sleep at a friend's place, but when the sun went down, I found myself unlocking my door like nothing was wrong. It's hard to explain why. Maybe part of me didn't want to admit I was scared. Maybe a deeper part already knew leaving wouldn't help. I didn't turn on the lights. I sat in the dark, just inside the doorway, waiting. Around midnight, I eased over to the window and parted the curtains, just an inch, just enough to see. She was there. Closer. Now she stood directly under the window, face tilted up so sharply her neck looked like it might snap. The light hit her just enough that I could see her eyes. They were open too wide. And they weren't blinking. I shut the curtain, stumbled backward, and knocked over a chair. Didn't care. My heart was trying to claw its way up my throat. I reached for the bat again, but it felt useless. Like bringing a fork to a flood. That's when I heard it. A tap. Light. Precise. Tap. Tap. From the window glass. Not banging. Not aggressive. Just polite. Like she was knocking to be let in. I stayed up the rest of the night. I didn't dare look again. I just sat there, listening. She tapped for hours. Always 3 times. Always with the same, unbearable patience. When the sun finally rose, the tapping stopped. I opened the curtain. She was gone. But this time, there were fingerprints on the inside of the glass. I called in sick. Didn't sleep. Didn't eat. Just sat at the kitchen table, watching the window from across the room like it might start breathing. I thought about installing security cameras, but something deep in my gut whispered not to. Like putting her on tape would make it worse. Like she'd know. And maybe that's what she wanted, to be seen. Around dusk, I tried to leave. Got as far as the front step before I stopped. My body just refused. Like the sidewalk was a cliff's edge and taking another step meant falling. So I stayed. When night came, I didn't check the window. Not right away. I tried to act like I didn't care. Like she wasn't part of my life now. But around 1:30, the air changed again. It got wet. Like the walls were sweating. My ears popped. The TV started playing static. And then, faintly, beneath the crackle, I heard breathing. From inside the room. I turned slowly toward the window. The curtains moved. Not from wind. They swayed like something had brushed past them from inside. I stood up too fast and knocked over the lamp. When the bulb shattered, the room plunged into darkness, except for the faintest glow from the window. The curtains parted. Just slightly. And her face, her actual face, was there. Pressed against the glass. Her eyes were too large. Not cartoonishly big, just unnaturally wide, like someone who hadn't blinked in days. The skin around them was stretched, brittle. Her lips were too pale, barely parted. Her expression wasn't angry or pleading. It was curious. Like she was studying me. Then she smiled. Just a small curl of the mouth, not warm or cold. Just acknowledgement. And then, she breathed on the glass. It fogged. And with one trembling finger, she wrote a single word in the condensation. Soon. I didn't open the curtains that day. Didn't even go near the window. I covered it with a heavy blanket, duct taped the edges, shoved furniture in front of it. Anything to block it out. But I couldn't stop thinking about the word she wrote. Soon. What does soon mean when something like her says it? Hours? Days? What's her idea of time? I tried calling a friend that afternoon, Jack, a guy I've known since college, but the call wouldn't go through. Not even a dial tone. Just silence. I tried again, and again. The phone finally rang. I didn't recognize the number. I let it go to voicemail. But no message came through. That night, I moved to the bedroom. Locked the door. Shut the blinds. Tried to convince myself I was in control. I wasn't. It started with a sound. Not tapping this time. Scraping. Long, drawn-out scrapes, like fingernails trailing slowly across wood. It started outside the apartment, on the other side of my front door. Then the hallway. Then the walls themselves. Something was circling me. Scraping its fingers along every surface I tried to hide behind. At 2:16 a.m., my bedroom door handle started to turn. It jiggled. Not violently. Like someone testing it. Casual. Playful. It stopped. And then I heard her voice for the first time. Not a whisper. Not a scream. Just one word, spoken clearly, like she was right outside the door. Closer. I didn't sleep. Couldn't even sit down. When the sun rose, I found a single crack running down the length of the bedroom mirror. Inside the crack, impossible as it sounds, I saw her reflection. Smiling. And closer. The crack in the mirror spread overnight. By morning, it had splintered like a spiderweb, reaching the edges of the frame even though the glass never fully broke. I covered it with a towel. Couldn't stand seeing her face twisted in the fractures, like she was trying to crawl through the reflections. I left the apartment for a few hours. I didn't pack, didn't even grab a coat. Just walked aimlessly until I ended up at a library a few neighborhoods away. I must have looked half mad, unshaven, hollow-eyed, but I needed to be around people, just for a while. To prove they still existed. I tried researching things. Spirits. Hauntings. Urban legends. Nothing matched. No tales of women appearing under windows. No warnings about silent tapping or cracked glass reflections. It was like whatever this was, it didn't want to be known. Like it existed in the blank spaces between stories. Around 5 p.m., I checked my phone. 6 missed calls. All from the same number I didn't recognize. I played one voicemail. At first, just silence. Then, a slow inhale. A slow exhale. And then, faintly, almost too soft to hear. Let me in. I left the library in a daze. When I returned home, the apartment was too quiet. Like the air itself was holding its breath. The blanket I'd taped over the window was gone. The duct tape was still there, torn down the middle like something ripped through it. The window itself? Wide open. I didn't want to look out. But I did. She wasn't there. Not below. Not in the street. Not anywhere in sight. For the first time in 6 nights. She was gone. I should have felt relief. But instead, something worse bloomed in my chest. Dread. Because it didn't mean she'd left. It meant she didn't need to wait outside anymore. She was inside now. Somewhere. Watching. Waiting. I searched the entire apartment. Closets. Cabinets. Under the bed. Even behind the fridge. Nothing. No trace of her. No black hair. No fingerprints. Just that awful stillness, like the walls were holding their breath, waiting to exhale. I slept with the lights on. Or I tried to sleep. Every time my eyes closed, I felt her behind them, like her presence had soaked into the apartment itself, into my mind. When I did finally drift off, it wasn't restful. I dreamed of water. Dark, endless water. I was submerged, floating weightless, staring up at the faint outline of my window. Her face hovered just beyond the surface, upside down, her mouth open, not to scream, but to breathe me in. And I couldn't move. Couldn't kick. Just drifted slowly upward toward her open mouth. I woke gasping. The room was freezing. My breath fogged in the air like it was the middle of January, but the heat was on, and the thermostat read 72. I stumbled to the bathroom to splash water on my face. When I turned on the light, I froze. There, written across the bathroom mirror in condensation, were 4 words. I was behind you. I spun so fast I slipped on the tile, hitting my shoulder on the sink. No one was there. But something was wrong with the reflection. In the mirror, my bedroom door was open. In real life, it was still closed. I ran to it. Flung it open. Empty. But on the hallway wall, carved deep into the paint, were scratch marks, long, parallel, uneven. Like someone had crawled their way through the corridor with broken fingernails and purpose. That was the last night I pretended I could stay. I packed a bag. But before I could even zip it shut, there was a knock at the door. 3 taps. Even. Measured. Like she knew exactly how long it would take for my heart to start racing again. I didn't answer the door. Of course I didn't. But I also didn't move. Couldn't. Just stood there, halfway between fight and flight, my bag slung over one shoulder and my hand shaking around the doorknob. 3 taps. Then silence. I waited 5 minutes. 10. Nothing. I finally worked up the nerve to look through the peephole. Empty hallway. Just yellowed wallpaper and a flickering light at the far end. I opened the door. Slowly. Still nothing. But as I stepped into the hallway, the door slammed shut behind me, so hard it rattled the frame. I spun around, hard in my throat, but no one was there. The hallway stretched on both sides, unchanged. Still, that flickering light down the far end? It was different now. There was something beneath it. Crouched. At first, I thought it was a shadow. But shadows don't twitch. And they don't crawl. She moved toward me slowly, limbs bending the wrong way. Her arms dragged behind her, too long, knuckles scraping the tile as she pulled herself forward with jerking, insect-like motions. Her head stayed level, fixed on me. Her face didn't move. No blink. No change in expression. Just that same small, knowing smile. I backed toward my apartment door. It was locked. The key was inside. I turned back toward the thing crawling toward me. And she was gone. No sound. No footsteps. Just vanished mid-crawl. I was alone again. Or so I thought. Then I heard it. Right behind me. A slow, steady exhale. Warm breath on the back of my neck. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. I closed my eyes and whispered, "Please." She whispered back, "I like your voice." And then, she was gone again. I don't know how I got back inside. Maybe the door opened on its own. Maybe I imagined that part. But when I finally collapsed onto the floor, the lights flickered once, and then every bulb in the apartment blew out at once, plunging me into total darkness. And from the black, a new sound rose. Not a knock. Not a whisper. A lullaby. Hummed gently from somewhere inside the walls. I didn't recognize the lullaby. It wasn't sweet. It wasn't soft. It was wrong. Out of tune in ways that made my skin crawl. Notes too flat, others pitched so high they bordered on inaudible. Like someone trying to remember a song from a dream, but only getting the rhythm of something buried. I curled on the couch, clutching the bat to my chest, but it felt useless. Every note made the air heavier, thicker. I started to feel like I was underwater again. Around 3 a.m., the music stopped. But something else began. Footsteps. Not heavy. Not fast. Barefoot. Soft, careful padding across the floorboards, like someone who had all night to reach me. I stayed still. They passed through the kitchen. Down the hall. Into the bedroom. Silence. Then the closet door creaked open. Then, laughter. A single, high giggle. Like a child playing hide and seek. I bolted from the apartment. I ran barefoot down the stairs, bag in hand, out into the street where the air felt sharp and real. The cold bit into my skin and for a moment, I felt free. I booked a room at a cheap motel on the other side of town. I didn't care about bedbugs or the flickering neon or the thin walls, I just needed distance. I tried to sleep. Tried. But I woke up around 4:12 a.m., heart hammering. Not because of a noise. Because of a smell. My room smelled like her now, wet earth, old wood, and something too sweet, like decaying lilies. I turned on the lamp. It flickered. Then died. I reached for my phone. It was already open to the camera app. Already recording. The screen showed the motel mirror, across the room, mounted above the dresser. And in the reflection, she was standing behind me. Closer than ever. So close I should have felt her hands. But when I turned around, the room was empty. Only, the recording was still running. And even though no one was there now, I could still see her in the reflection. She lifted one pale hand. And waved. I smashed the mirror. Didn't think, just acted. Grabbed the motel's rusted wastebasket and hurled it into the glass until it shattered into a web of silver shards. The reflection vanished, but the silence that followed was worse. Like I'd just broken something I wasn't meant to touch. And the camera? Still recording. I looked at the screen. No reflection this time. Just darkness. A slow fade in. And then, a close-up of her face. Not like before, no distance, no mystery. She was right there, nose almost to the lens, staring into the phone as if looking through it. Through the screen. Through me. She didn't blink. Didn't smile. Just whispered something I couldn't hear. I turned off the phone. Yanked the battery out, even though I knew that wouldn't help. I left the motel at dawn. I didn't go home. I drove. Miles and miles, as far as I could, until buildings thinned and the trees took over. I pulled over at a rest stop, heart pounding, and just sat in the car. Trying to think. Trying to breathe. Then I saw it. Out in the woods, just past the edge of the tree line. A figure. Not moving. Watching. It was her. I don't know how she got there. I don't know how she always gets there. But the worst part wasn't that she'd followed me. It was that this time, she wasn't alone. There were others. Half a dozen figures, standing motionless between the trees. All of them pale. All of them staring. And each one had the same wide, unblinking eyes. Like she'd brought company. Like she'd been busy. Like whatever she was, it was spreading. I drove straight through the day, didn't stop for food, didn't stop for gas until the light was screaming at me. I filled up at some backwoods station where the clerk didn't even look me in the eye. Maybe he knew. Maybe they all know. When I asked for a motel nearby, he said, "Don't stay here after dark," and then turned away like he hadn't said anything at all. I didn't sleep that night. Just sat in the room with every light on and a chair propped against the door. No windows. I picked the place for that reason. No way for her to stand outside and stare in. But just after midnight, the light bulbs began to hum. That awful frequency again, like pressure building behind my eyes. Then, one by one, the lights flickered. Dimmed. Then died. I scrambled to find my flashlight, and when I clicked it on, the door was open. Still barricaded. Still chained. But it was open anyway. And beyond it? A long, dark hallway that didn't exist before. Should have led to the parking lot, but now it stretched out endlessly, lined with doors on either side, none marked. None open. The air pouring from it was freezing. I didn't want to move. But something stepped into the hall. Not her this time. A man. Tall, thin, eyes wide and glassy like hers. He stepped into the room and smiled, a familiar, distant kind of smile, like he was remembering how. Then he spoke. But it was her voice. Coming from his mouth. "Let's go home." I ran. Didn't look back. Didn't stop until I hit the highway. Now I don't know where I am, just somewhere west of nowhere, writing this from a roadside diner that looks like it hasn't changed since 1973. The waitress keeps glancing at the window. I haven't told her anything, but she sees something out there. She asked if I had a daughter. I said no. She nodded slowly. Then whispered, "She's looking for you anyway." The diner let me stay until closing. The waitress, Marla, gave me an old wool blanket from her car and a strange look, like she'd seen too many people like me pass through. "You'll sleep in the booth," she said. "But if you hear tapping, don't look. And whatever you do, don't answer the door." She said it like she wasn't just guessing. I nodded, too tired to ask. I lasted maybe an hour. Then the cold started seeping in. But it wasn't the kind of cold that comes from bad insulation, it was inside me. Like someone cracked my ribs open and replaced my blood with ice water. And then, tap, tap, tap. Not on the door. On the glass of the booth. My body went rigid. I didn't look. I knew it was her. I could feel her eyes drilling through the smudged window. Could feel her breath fogging up the glass, spelling out that same word again and again. Soon. 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 I closed my eyes. But it didn't help. Because this time, I didn't see her, I heard her. Inside my head. A whisper, barely audible but crawling across my brain like frostbite. "Why did you stop watching?" And then came the sound I'll never forget. The diner phone ringing. 3 times. Then silence. Then ringing again. I crawled to the counter and yanked the cord from the wall. The phone kept ringing. I backed away. The lights buzzed. Flickered. The jukebox turned on by itself, crackling through static to an old tune I didn't recognize. And then the door to the kitchen swung open. She stood there. Soaking wet. Not from rain, but from something thicker, something that clung to her skin and dripped onto the tile in black rivulets. She tilted her head. And every light in the diner went out. Except the booth light. I turned to run, and suddenly, I was back in the booth, as if I'd never moved. Like she'd rewound time just to keep me close. Pinned. I screamed. But the booth glass fogged again, and this time she wrote something new. "You dreamed me real." I don't remember falling asleep. But I woke up in the booth. Daylight. Diner empty. Everything exactly where it should be. No puddles, no fogged glass, no wet footprints. Just the lingering, oily scent of rotting flowers that clung to my clothes like a bruise. Marla was gone. So was my bag. And in the middle of the table, where my coffee had been the night before, sat a single object. A music box. Old, wooden, hand-carved. I didn't touch it. Not right away. But it played on its own. A soft, delicate lullaby. Her lullaby. That same wrong melody, disjointed and familiar, as if she'd stitched it together from pieces of my childhood nightmares. I backed away and bolted for the door. Outside, the world looked the same, but felt off. Colors slightly duller. Edges too sharp. Like I'd stepped sideways into a version of reality where something was misaligned. I got in my car. Started driving. Didn't know where. Just away. But the road never ended. The towns all looked the same. Every gas station, every billboard, every curve in the highway, it all started repeating. Until finally, my GPS glitched and displayed a single word. Home. I didn't put in a destination. I didn't press anything. But the car began to slow on its own, like it knew where to go. And that's when I saw the building. My apartment. Not a copy. Mine. Exactly as I left it, right down to the crooked porch light and the faded welcome mat. As if I'd never left. As if everything, the motel, the diner, the road, was just a detour. A long, cruel joke. The front door was open. And inside, I heard the music box playing. Over and over and over. I should have run. But instead, I stepped inside. And the door closed behind me. The air in the apartment was thick, humid, like walking into a greenhouse full of dead things. My footsteps echoed too loudly, like the space had expanded in my absence, like the walls had been pushed further apart. The music box sat in the center of the living room. Still open. Still playing. I couldn't see her yet. But I knew she was here. The lights flickered, not all at once, but in a slow wave, like they were watching me blink. The floorboards creaked behind me. Then in front. Then directly beneath. She was circling. Or maybe the apartment was. Every corner of the room looked off. The walls had seams where they never did before, like they'd been taken apart and reassembled slightly wrong. I reached for the music box. My hand hovered over it. The song stopped. Click. Its lid slammed shut. And from the kitchen came a voice, not hers this time. Mine. Soft. Trembling. Repeating a phrase I hadn't spoken since I was 8 years old. I won't look. I won't look. I won't look. I turned toward the sound. And there she was. Not outside. Not crawling. Just standing in the hallway, inches from me. Her head cocked slightly. Eyes impossibly wide. But it wasn't just her anymore. It was me, too. Her face had taken on pieces of mine. My eyes. My mouth. My fear. She smiled, my smile, and reached out. Her hand was ice. But her touch wasn't violent. It was familiar. Like she'd known me longer than I'd known myself. And then, slowly, she whispered the truth. You made me. You needed me. And now we finished this together. I don't remember how I got back inside. One moment, her hand was in mine, cold, soft, wrong, and the next, I was standing in the middle of my apartment. Or what looked like it. The furniture was there, but it was too still, like a painted backdrop. The air held no warmth. No movement. Time itself felt suspended, caught mid-inhale. She stood across from me. Not outside. Not in the mirrors. Here. Up close, her face was a patchwork of almost familiar features. Mine, yes, but younger. Sadder. Her skin was smooth but paper-thin, stretched tight across bone that didn't seem meant for her frame. And then she spoke. Her voice wasn't a whisper this time. It was mine. Calm. Certain. You invited me in the first time you watched too long. The first time you wondered if someone could be out there. Watching back. I shook my head. My mouth moved, but no words came. She took a step forward. No sound. No wait. The night you stared into the dark and wished it would blink. I backed into the wall. It should have stopped me, but it didn't. I just kept going. Right through it. The apartment peeled away. Walls vanished like mist, replaced by cold black sky and a landscape I couldn't recognize. Twisted buildings, warped streets, a horizon that bled into itself. And in the center of it all, the window. The one from my room. Standing on its own, like a freestanding frame suspended in air. On the other side, a man stared out, sleep-deprived, shaking, terrified. Me. I watched myself. Staring into the dark. And in that reflection, I saw her behind me, reaching up, inching closer night after night. The cycle never ended. It only shifted. She turned to me, that almost my smile curling at the corners. Now it's your turn. Then she stepped through me. And vanished. I opened my eyes to glass. To the creak of floorboards behind me. To the sight of someone in the apartment, walking toward the window. He doesn't see me. Not yet. But he will. Because every night, I'm standing just a little closer. The end.